Welcome to What We Tell Our Daughters, our collective daughters, the future women of the world. This show was born in an evening of making paleo snickerdoodle cookies and wondering to myself, how am I going to remember all of the things that are most important for me to teach my daughter? And what are the most important things for me to teach my daughter? So, for a little bit of background, I've wanted to be a mom my whole life. Probably being a mother is one of my callings, and leaving something important with her is the thing that must be done. Like this world we live in needs to be better. We have to be better. There's so many things in the world right now that need to be changed. And so what we tell our daughters is about sharing that wisdom of what it is to be a woman, but more than that, bigger than that, it's about sharing the wisdom of what it is to be a human and how do we give back to the world in a way that truly matters. So, what we tell our daughters, this show is here to support me and to support you in our hopefully shared mission to create a better world, one where we're proud, one that we're proud to pass on to our future generations. So we'll cover everything that we need to know over the next, hopefully, many years that this show exists on how to become the best version of ourselves so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves for our children. And we can show them, we can lead by example what it means to make changes, to contribute in a positive way, and to hopefully have them watch if they're born today or tomorrow or last year in my daughter's case, watch the world evolve over the course of their childhood. I haven't seen that as much as I'd like to in my own life. And so I hope that the rate of change is much faster for our children and they can look back on their childhood and say, maybe things weren't great when I was born, but by the time I reached age 20, this is truly a good place to be. So the world, this one of my founding principles in this show is that the world needs more strong women. And this show, this episode is mostly for women. If you're a man listening to this, I hope you have a daughter or some children you can share this with. You're welcome to listen, but really, this show is going to be more targeted towards women because we're in this together and we've been left to the wayside for most of human history. So it's time for us to take back that power and understand what are the things that we can truly change? What are the levers we can pull in our lives and our children's lives that will make the world better? So today, I want to rewind a little bit and start by talking about my first interaction with hormones, which was birth control when I was 16 years old. And up until that point, I think I hadn't really thought about what it feels like to be me until I didn't feel like me anymore. And what hormonal birth control did for me was basically strip away so much of what I enjoyed about life. And so I went through probably 2 years of oral birth control pills, feeling like, what's the best way to describe it? Kind of just like an empty soul. Like I was going through the motions, but I didn't truly feel like me. And I think this is the story for so many women. And this journey of balancing my hormones, of understanding women's hormones at a very deep level began more than 10 years ago. And I think that many women, if you ask them today, will say they maybe don't even know exactly who they are behind the mask of these hormonal birth controls or even just medications we take can really mask who we are and how we feel. So, one of my life missions, in addition to um, creating a better world for our children and thinking about how we teach and guide our daughters, is also to teach and guide our daughters on how to take control over their bodies so that they can feel like that most empowered version of themselves. Because I also have a deep belief that if you don't feel good, it's nearly impossible to make change, to show up for yourself, to show up for others. You know, you can have big, huge dreams in your head, but if you don't feel like getting out of bed every day, what are the chances that you're actually going to make those happen? So for many people, the starting point is actually taking the reins back on your health and especially the reins back on your hormones. Because when they're in balance, when you understand your body in a very specific way, you can harness that power to make changes and you can utilize your natural hormone cycles to be more effective in certain parts of the month. Now, if those are masked by an oral birth control, for example, you basically don't have a cycle. You have no ebbs and flows, no rise and fall. You don't have these parts of your cycle where you might be more creative or more able to talk and communicate with people. You're basically just going to feel kind of the same all the time. And if you're really a lucky woman, then you're going to feel the same and you're going to feel good. But for the majority of women, you're going to feel the same and you're going to feel like a dimmer version of yourself, not as sparkly as you could be. Let's put it that way. So, rewinding back to the story of my hormones, when I went on oral hormonal birth control, I knew I didn't feel like myself. And I knew that it felt like something had been taken away from me, some spark, some light. And so I decided, I know I need birth control. I'm not ready to have a child right now, even though I love children and I wanted them desperately from a very young age. So an IUD seemed like a good next choice for me because I could get a copper IUD that had no hormones. I felt that it was the best chance I had at really understanding my own body and its natural hormone cycles. Mind you, at this point in my life, I was 19, 20. That's the point where I knew that taking hormones wasn't going to work for me. So I went ahead and I got an IUD and it worked okay. I actually was able to start to understand my natural cycles a little bit. I felt more in touch with my body. And I had it for a few years. But after a few years had passed, I started to realize that I was kind of slipping and falling back into that same place where I had hormone cycles, but I didn't quite feel like myself. I was gaining weight. I felt like there was a cloud over my head sometimes. And I went to the doctor, and of course, the doctor said, well, there's no hormones in the IUD. It can't be that. It's not that that's making you feel that way. It's probably just something in your life or whatever it may be. I was also in college, so I was also not eating great. I was probably drinking too much. A lot of things, in addition to that were playing into how I felt in my daily life. But the IUD played a big role for me because when I had it removed, finally, it was like sparkles just arrived on the scene. Like I felt like myself again almost immediately. Because what they don't tell you about the IUD is that although, yes, it doesn't have hormones, it causes inflammation in your uterus. And anytime we have inflammation going on in the body, it can create this myriad of other effects that really trickle down and trickle out throughout our bodies. And you're basically telling your body it's not safe to have a baby. And if we look at human evolution, women were made to have babies. Whether or not we have evolved to stay that way, I think women have evolved much over time. Humanity has evolved. And so maybe that's no longer one of our primary drives. But from a biological standpoint, that is. And so when we block our ability to do that, there is a little part of you that doesn't quite feel like you anymore, I think. And this was certainly true for me. I hope that listening to this maybe validates what you're feeling, or you say, this totally sounds like me too. I've experienced the same thing. I've talked to many women since then who say they completely understand what I'm saying, that that's exactly what it felt like for them, that something just wasn't right. And sometimes that something is so small that it feels ignorable. But the truth is, if we're not living fully present in our life, fully who we are, then we're not really fulfilling our role in this world. We're not giving ourselves a chance to really shine. So um, it was from there that I went on a journey with no hormones, no IUD, no birth control to interrupt my natural experience of the world. And the real question became, was there a way for me to understand my hormones so well, so deeply that it allowed me to live my life more on my terms, to have more joy, to be more present, to connect with others at a deeper level and the world around me? I am a natural introvert. I don't love spending massive amounts of time with people. And so I really needed the time that I did spend with people to be meaningful and um, to really feel like me and not feel like I was just kind of going through the motions. So I set out on this quest. And I did many different things, of many which you'll hear of in future episodes. And basically, the answer was yes, I did. I figured out all of the things that I could do for myself to become more of me. So I went from feeling depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, sad all the time. I would sit and study, and I would find myself crying over a textbook for literally no reason at all. That was not me. And so I went from that to feeling completely in love with life and completely excited for the adventures to come. And it didn't happen overnight. It took quite a bit of tweaking to figure out exactly what it was that my body needed, because we're not all the same. And there are certain things we know help move us in the right direction in general, but each person is different, and what our body can take or can't take, or what it needs, or what brings us joy is so unique and so individualized. And that's why it's also very important to be okay with testing and being on a bit of a longer journey in order to discover what those things are for you. So I'm going to tell you what they were for me, because this might help you if you're in the same place as I was, or you're experiencing some of these things and you're wondering where to start. Here are some of the things that I did. So I was lifting heavy weights in the gym, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, in addition to running at least twice, sometimes 3 times. And I was going to, brace yourself, hot yoga HIIT classes for an hour that included weights and literal burpees in a hot yoga room. Hindsight 2020, that was way too much for my body. It felt good at the time. It felt like a release. I know a lot of women use exercise as stress reduction. I definitely did that, but I didn't give myself the recovery time that my body needed. So when I slowed down and I let myself take more breaks, so I would do every other day some sort of exercise, which ended up being closer to maybe 1 or 2 times of weights, no more than once a week of HIIT, and maybe no HIIT at all in the couple of weeks leading up to my period. That ended up being a lot more nourishing for my body, and I felt much more like myself. This was especially important because at the time I was working full time in the hospital as a nurse, so 12-hour shifts, and I had just bought my own house at 23 years old. So I was also working many extra shifts to pay for that house. So sometimes I would work 6 shifts in a row. And I would consider it a good night if I got 7 hours in bed, which at the time I thought, you know what, if I get 7 hours in bed, I'm getting 7 hours of sleep. But now I know that 7 hours in bed is probably closer to 5.5 or 6 hours, if I'm lucky, of actual sleep time, which is not only nowhere near enough just to be a normal human, let alone to be safe, giving medications and running IVs and things like that, but nowhere near enough to actually feel good. So the moral of the story is I was doing most things wrong. I was not eating enough protein. I was eating some carbs, probably not enough carbs. I was eating a lot of just raw vegetables, which come to find now is super not great for your gut health, which is another topic we'll dive into on this show. So I wasn't nourishing my body in the way that it needed. And I felt confused because I had stopped all forms of birth control. And remember, I said when I got the IUD out, I felt more like sparkly. I felt more like myself. And that's true. But it took a while of pulling these other levers to really get back to feeling like myself, because when I had taken the hormonal birth control out of the picture, and then I took the IUD out of the picture, and I had no other external thing to blame hormonal imbalance on, that was when I really had to be honest with myself about, am I really doing the things I need to do to nourish my body? And is this the best I can feel? And the truth was, it wasn't. And so I started to put these small changes into place that over time helped me understand, okay, in that first week when I have my period, I'm really tired, maybe for the first day or second day of my period. And then after that, I actually have tons of energy. That's when we might actually feel most like a man, right? Our testosterone is higher, our estrogen, our progesterone are lower. We feel more kind of even keel, steady. So I find that that's a really good time to exercise heavier. Maybe that's a week when I might do HIIT more than once, just once, something like that. in that week leading up to my period, I'm usually much more introverted. I want to be by myself. I want to take time to rest. I'm definitely not going to be doing any HIIT. I'm probably going to bring in more yoga, things like that. And it took a long time of tweaking to really figure out what it felt like to be me. Who was I underneath all of these excuses, all of these things in my life that were taking away from my ability to truly embody my own body? And so I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most women in the world don't know what it feels like to be them anymore. They've been on this path for so long of being pushed from birth control to job to lack of sleep to diet that they don't really know what it feels like to feel good and to truly have their thoughts be their own thoughts, not the hormonal thoughts that can go on under the surface. So that is my quest for all of us on this journey. That is my biggest goal is for all of us as women, as a collective. If I could wave a magic wand and every woman on this earth knew exactly what it felt like to be them, what they wanted, what was driving them, what made them excited, this world would look very different. And that is the lever that I want to pull in this world, is to empower women to take back control over their lives, to find their voice, to find their magic, to find their wisdom, and to find what lights them up. And I think we do that by feeling good again, by truly feeling like ourselves. So that's my quest. And as this show continues, I'm going to interview lots of women who are doing amazing things in the world and who have amazing pieces of wisdom to share, not only with you, but with our future daughters or our current daughters, the future women of the world. And this journey is twofold. It's to discover ourselves at a deeper level and to understand ourselves at such a deep level that we can teach our daughters. So they never have to go on this crazy journey, ideally. I know for some of us, the journey is what brought us here, and that's okay too. But for me, I would love it if my daughter never has to know what it feels like to have her hormones completely masked, to feel insane, to feel like yelling or screaming at your partner when you actually love them unconditionally with deep, deep, deep love. And you know that it's insane, but you can't make the thoughts stop. So, those are experiences that are unique to the world we've created, where we are somewhat medicated. And ideally, this is a world we don't always have to live in. So, that is one of my goals for this show. And also, nobody told me what it was like to be a woman. So I didn't understand my body. I didn't understand sex. I didn't understand desire for most things, desire for profession, desire for money, desire for using my voice in a way that matters. Those are all things that I've learned with time. And if we can shorten the time that it takes for our daughters to reach this same point, then we speed up the rate of change of the world. We speed up this path and hopefully make it exponentially greater quicker. So that's why I'm here with you today. And I hope you continue listening with me, joining with me on this journey. Stay tuned. We're going to have some great interviews, and I'm going to talk to you about what it's like to be a digital nomad and a mother and to give birth in a different country. And all of that is to come, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode.